Welcome back. Staying on the streets, we ask the question, is this car an electric dream? This is the MG Windsor EV review. Is it the solution to pollution? We'll tell you more about it. The Windsor EV, it's an unconventional choice, or is it MG's bold bet? This new design is put to the test by Overdrive. Today on the show, we take a look at the question, is it time that we rethink what it means to hustle? The tragic deaths in the last few days of Anna Sebastian and Tarun Saxena, one an employee at Ernst & Young, the other at Bajaj Finance. They've sparked national outrage, created a conversation, and of course brought to light the crushing toll of toxic work environments. Now, it is time to question the rules, to stop glorifying the grind, and of course to demand that workplaces value human beings and their well-being as much as results. Let's just take a deeper look at both of these stories. There is of course Anna, who we're showing you on your screens. She succumbed to extreme work stress after only 4 months on the job. She left behind a heartbroken family, and you'll remember the tearful, heartbreaking public plea that her mother made to reconsider the glorification of overwork. That resonated deeply. There's also, of course, Tarun. We're also showing you him on your screens. Unable to meet impossible targets set by his managers, he took his life, revealing in his suicide note just how relentless work pressure led to sleepless nights, deteriorating health. These aren't isolated incidents, and that's why we're taking a look at this story today. We're witnessing a dangerous pattern, companies pushing their employees to the brink, often, as we can see over here, with terrible, very, very dire consequences.
So let's look at hustle culture a little bit. You know, the idea that success demands sleepless nights and long hours remains rampant even as mental health issues and burnout are skyrocketing. Perhaps that was the case in earlier generations or a particular set of people, but clearly not the case anymore, right? And while some might still be glorifying it, not speaking about it openly, but still sort of pushing for it, there have been some voices from the industry that have spoken out. For example, it is the Zoho CEO, Sridhar Vembu, the Swiggy CEO, Rohit Kapoor, both amongst those who came out to say that, listen, let's put an end to this, or certainly have a conversation about it. Sridhar Vembu warns of a pressure cooker environment many employees face, from grueling commutes to stressful deadlines, urging companies to focus on decentralizing operations and creating a more sustainable work-life balance. Isn't that something we all relate to? Rohit Kapoor, on the other hand, also dismissed the night work hours as unsustainable, encouraging employees to prioritize their sanity over senseless hustling. Now, these leaders remind us that extreme work pressure is not a badge of honor, it is a systemic failure. And perhaps just to sort of point it out at this point, nobody is saying that hustle is bad. We are saying hustle is a phase. It is not a way of life, right? Unlike what many would say came from Narayan Murthy, who went on to controversially make statements about 70-hour work weeks. These CEOs, on the other hand, the new age CEOs, sort of speaking a different language. So we'll decode all of this, unpack all of this on the program, because clearly it's not just Anna's story, it is not just Tarun's. There are so many unreported cases, more and more being talked about in hushed circles.
So I really want to highlight for our audiences before we go ahead, part of what you said right now, Sonal. Hustling is not the problem. As you pointed out, overworking is, when hustling becomes the norm, our everyday. And this is not just about the conversation around a work-life balance, it's also about survival. Companies must do better, but to understand how, we have with us an expert on the show today. We have Smita Das Jain. She's the founder and the CEO of Empower Yourself. She's a certified executive coach. She's joining us right here on the broadcast. Let's go over to her to ask her more on this story. Smita, good morning. Thank you for joining us. Smita, could we ask you first?
And Sonal, thank you for having me here.
Yes, of course. Smita, if we could ask you, these two incidents that have taken place, you are someone who frequents executives, you know, you're talking to them all the time, executives across companies, that's senior leadership. I want to understand from you, these two stories, do you think they are the reckoning that the nation needed? Are these conversations finally entering into boardrooms, into senior leadership?
Toya, it's actually unfortunately, it's a one-off thing. See, these incidents have been happening for quite some time. If we look at the year 2022 alone, Statista shared the statistics that in that year alone, 11,481 employees in corporate India committed suicide, lost their lives because of work-life stress. There were around, again, 5,000 odd additional employees in the government and public sector. So in 1 year alone, we had 16,000 such deaths. But it didn't enter the mainstream conversation still. Unfortunately, till a mother's letter to a head of an organization went viral. And now we are having this conversation because there is limelight. Unfortunately, again, when the limelight will be gone, we will be back to our old ways. These incidents have been happening. Everybody knows that there's a hustle culture. Overwork, long work hours, unrealistic targets are a badge of honor. As a life and executive coach, I have clients coming to me every day that how do I cope with this pressure? This is so unrealistic. I'm not getting time for my personal life. How do I manage? Why are they coming to me at an individual basis? Why are organizations not providing them support? Until this support system isn't there, the incidents will continue happening till we start, until we stop glorifying the 70-hour work culture, until we stop saying that working 9 to 9 is a badge of honor. There will be a lot of pressure. Okay, it's also peer pressure. If somebody is working for 12 hours a day, then others point out, why aren't you also doing that? So till it is there, these incidents unfortunately will continue until some systematic changes happen.
Yeah. So I slightly disagree with you on just it being a peer pressure or just being a systemic change. At the end of the day, culture percolates from the top. So if this were to change, leaderships have to take note, correct? Leaders have to be more mindful of the culture that is sort of trickling down. And why, we've said this in the past as well, why this story is sort of striking a chord with so many people, because we're saying this did not happen inside a startup. This happened in a well-organized structure like EY, like others that we have spoken about. So what is the lag? Why aren't the leaders able to sort of see this through? Are they worried about the impact? Or is this a different generation of leaders we are speaking with who perhaps haven't sort of accepted the changing environment?
See, first thing, IQ, especially in our culture, is always given more importance than EQ. So today's generation of leaders, they have grown from the ranks, right? And right from that time, the culture is such that, okay, the more you work, the higher it is as a badge of honor. So that's the mindset they are still carrying. And as you rightly said, Sonal, yes, the Generation Z, the young generation is different. But the leadership is still set on the mindset which they have seen in their older years. So it is like, okay, the means justify the ends, or rather whatever end is there, we have to achieve our targets. There is too much focus on IQ, meeting targets at any cost. And there is too less of focus on EQ and empathy. There are organizations which are not putting as much emphasis on empathy training, sensitization training. Till empathy is emphasized, till as leaders, right, stemming from the top. And remember, leaders also have other leaders above them. It's actually a pyramid. So right from the top, until we start propagating EQ, emotional quotient, giving as much importance to empathy and sensitization in leadership, this thing is going to happen. Leaders are not trained in sensitization. Somebody comes, okay, I have a problem, I have too much heavy workload. People are even afraid to say that because the environment is not
not
safe.
the leader's job.
Yes, exactly. So it's not considered a line job. All the leaders are concerned about, or most of the leaders, I would say, hey, I have to meet targets. And to be fair to them, even they have their own pressure of meeting targets. So I have to meet targets. You ask me any challenges regarding that, I will tell you. But hey, if you are dealing with pressure, be a man, be a leader, deal up to the change. So work pressure is something that is normalized. You are supposed to deal with it in the eyes of the senior leaders in terms of the culture. And as I said, until this mindset changes, uh, leaders have to set an example, and they are setting an example that hustle culture is a badge of honor. You have to deal with it, so deal with it. And that's why it's continuing like that. They are not ready to they don't have that mindset actually, that disconnecting from work-life balance, the always on culture, it's actually not sustainable. They have not been, they have put there is blinkers in their eyes, and it's not that they are to blame. It's, it's the environment they have grown up in, it's the mindset, it's the culture. Until sensitization trainings are given, until somebody tells them that EQ and empathy is equally important, you have to shift to a culture where mistakes are accepted as learnings rather than failures. This will continue.
Smita, let me ask you an interesting perspective in this entire story that has cropped up over the last few weeks that I thought was interesting was the idea, or the criticism rather, that this entire conversation is specific to white-collar workers. That when we talk about work-life balance, that concept in itself, even though we're not saying that they have work-life balance, but even the concept, the question that we only speak particularly to white-collar workers, we leave blue-collar workers out of this discussion. I just want to ask you your perspective there. And I ask you that because, again, the Swiggy CEO coming out and saying this when at the same time there is today such a conversation around delivery workers and how they are treated. I just want to ask how you see these conflicting tides.
See, work-life pressure is also there at the blue-collar worker level. The only difference is that it's like more accepted. You are supposed to deal with those longer work hours and 24/7 work days without leave if you are a blue collar worker. Again, it's the culture, it's the societal norm. For white collars workers, it has always been, hey, you are supposed to anyway deal with it. You are, unlike the blue collar workers, you are, sitting inside an air conditioned office. There are all the resources. So you are better equipped, better educated. You are that's the norm. Go ahead and accept it. It is, and that is the reason, the deaths, any incidents happening with the delivery boys and other blue collar workers, why even the housemates, okay, nobody talks about that. There should be a norm that, they should have their weekly offs. What will happen, how do they manage, even if they ask for leave during a festival, there is this request, or how will we manage, all our guests are coming. That's the way of life, that's the way society is. It's only when these white collar incidents happen, because it's us, right? We all are white collar workers and we are present in the social media. We have the means to talk about it, and one of these conversations catches attention and goes viral, and these conversations start happening. Work pressure is very much pervasive across all strata of society. As white collar employees, we do have the advantage of using social media to propagate our voice. We do have that advantage of, reaching out to the network. Unfortunately, blue collar workers, they don't have that medium, and that's why their voice is not propagated as much.
All right. Right. Smita, we'll have to leave it there for the moment. Thank you so much for joining us with that perspective. And just to sort of underline again, for a lot of hustlers watching the program right now, there is nothing wrong in what you're doing if it is coming from within. And trust me, it's coming from another hustler. If it's coming from within, if you like putting in those extra hours, please do it. The problem is when you're forced to be in an environment where you have no other choice. That is the problem, and that is what we really need to address over here. Thanks, Smita, for joining us for that very fascinating chat. Let's switch tracks now and bring you some other stories. This one is a pollution check. Now, for the past couple of days, we've been bringing you pollution levels, AQI levels in Delhi NCR consistently, and it's only going to get worse in the days to come. But let's take a status check of this morning. And Delhi NCR's air quality is a major concern today, and various levels across different regions are also in the red. Mundka, for example, in Delhi, it has an AQI of 337 this morning, which falls under the unhealthy category, posing risk to people with respiratory issues over there. Anand Vihar in Delhi has an alarming AQI of 999. Well, that's only 999 because the AQI cannot record above that. So it's much over at this point, indicating again hazardous conditions there that can severely impact even healthy individuals. And this is a serious concern. Needless to sort of remind you of that.
In contrast, we are also seeing parts of Delhi with relatively better AQI. There is, for example, the AQI you've got of 191 coming in from Narela. It's categorized as poor, but not as poor as what we were just discussing. While still a concern, as we said, it's slightly more manageable than other areas. Moving to the outer NCR regions, let's take a look at Noida, an AQI of 204, falling under poor. And on the other side, you have Gurugram, Gurgaon, slightly better, an AQI of 160, also categorized as poor. So those are some of the measurements we're seeing coming in from the capital at this hour.
All right, with that, we're going to slip into a break. Coming up on the other side is an exciting chat where we sort of lay out the blueprint of breaking societal barriers. There's a book that has come out in the market. It's called Letters to the Daughters of Tomorrow. Fascinating topic. And the author, Dr. Khera, is going to be with us in the studio to talk to us about how women in leadership and in the workforce are changing the norm. Or are they really? We'll have a look at that on the other side. Welcome back. You're watching The Breakfast Club, and it's that time on the program where we chat with our person of interest. Our guest today is paving the way for future generations of women to unleash their true profession and true potential. Don't we all just love that? Joining us live today is Dr. Shamali Khera. She's an author. She's a media producer, executive coach, one of the Time magazine's influential personalities of 2021. Hi, good morning.
Good
and
morning.
In her latest book, Letters to the Daughters of Tomorrow, Breaking the Stereotypes to Unleash Her Potential, she explores the age-old challenges that women face in a patriarchal society and the conditioning that often holds them back.
Right, we have the book right here. She also offers in this book solutions. So powerful insights on how today's women can overcome these obstacles, shape a future where they can thrive as leaders, dreamers, achievers. Dr. Shamali Khera refers to today's generation of working women as the transition generation. To her, it's one that will blaze the path for the others that are yet to come, the younger Gen Z women that are yet to come. So, right from lessons on resilience to smashing stereotypes, we hope this conversation inspires you. Let's go over to Dr. Shamali to ask her a first question on this entire book. Doctor, tell us before each chapter, there's a little poem you've written, and we'll get into it in a second. But first, I wanted to ask you, in India, when you think of leaders, we're different from other countries in the sense that, and let's just talk about political leaders for a second, we're no stranger to female political leaders, right? Right from the present tense, Delhi has a female chief minister. You've had Mayawati in the past, Sheila Dikshit in the past, Indira, like all these names. So we're not in some ways not used to female leaders. At the same time, it is a unique relationship that we share with women and with the gender of a woman, what we expect from a woman. And it's different from the West. A country like the US has never seen a female president.
Right.
How do you see that? How does India, for you, treat their women leaders who recognize the leader within them?
You know, I think India is a fantastically diverse country where the roles of women are very fascinating. I think that's one of the reasons why I wanted to write this book, because we do glorify the role of women while talking about household and how important a role there is. While we also do have leaders, my issue is that there are very few out there, and even the names that you've just mentioned of the lovely political Indian leaders that we've had, they're far too less. I feel we can have more here. And I feel this is pretty much the transition generation where that change will happen, where it will be okay for us to see women working outside the house, where it will be normal for the kids to see the women stepping out and working, where it's not just seen as an added income to the family, where it is a lot about her aspirations and if she's really achieving her true potential. So I feel India is a very, very extreme country. There are families and societies that do encourage women to step out, but there are also societies where it's absolutely discouraged. So I think that's the conversation we want to focus on.
Right. Dr. Shamali, you know, the book has a very fascinating subject, 3 women talking about it. What better sort of setting to sort of do that? But, you know, it says letters to the daughters of tomorrow. These letters will actually go through the mothers of today. And as a mother of today, I have to tell you the biggest struggle that we have is have good role models. Good role models who will prioritize work along with having a stable family life. And we were just discussing hustle culture before you. There's always this pick and choice that one has to make. And, you know, very interesting, I want to point out, we interviewed Radhika Gupta a couple of days ago, and she said, and I was trying to ask her, that how do you do it all? How do you become the CEO and also be a mother of a toddler in the same year? And she said, people see this, what they don't see is that I've had 4 miscarriages earlier. So where are the inspirations for mothers of today?
You know, you're absolutely right. I mean, when it comes to women, very interestingly, it's always women who have to make the choice. But when we talk to our sons, when we are bringing up, you know, the men of tomorrow or the boys of tomorrow, the constant conversation with them is they are going to be the breadwinners of their future families. So, of course, they do have to build a career. They do have to have, you know, a stable source of income. And that's the conversation that we're having with them. But somehow, when it comes to women, we are constantly putting putting them in a bracket where they have to choose when it comes to even the job, when it comes to the great promotion, and when it comes to, should I focus on my maternity leave or should I focus on this project that I have at hand? And interestingly, it's always her choice to lose. So I feel that's the conversation that we must change, because the balance does start at home. When we do encourage the men also to kind of share the workload at home, to also equally take care of the family, or child rearing or the household activities, I think balance or gender balance begins at home. It can't be just at work. So I think our men and sons also need to be a part of that conversation. And you're absolutely right. I often quote Michelle Obama, who said that women can have it all but maybe not at the same time, which means that even in a marriage or in a marital situation, it's a partnership of not always 50-50. It might be 80-20, some days it might be 60-40 or 30-70, which means that one partner may have to give it a bit more while the other is at work. And I think that truly stems from having the conversation equally with our daughters and sons.
You actually said this as you were sitting down, that this book is as much for men as it is for women, and you want men also to pick it up, to read it. Can I ask you, Doctor, one more question here? One of the numbers, there are quite a few statistics in this book that really hit home. One of them is that you say that, and I'm going to read it here, you say 33% of bullies in the workplace are women. And I wanted to talk to you a little bit about that, because the book delves into this idea that sometimes the biggest enemy for a woman is other women, and you talk about the generational conflict that comes in there. And I just want to ask you, I read this, and you discussed this, it's a bit of a chicken and egg situation, because we're also in spaces that make us competitive with each other, women uniquely. So how do you rebuild a situation like that when you're in a competitive space naturally? What is your word there?
You're absolutely right. I mean, when this research, when I came across this research, it's called the Queen Bee Syndrome, which means that women at work are generally more tough to women at workplace as opposed to male colleagues or, male juniors. And when you dive deep into it, I mean, from the over facade, and when you really see deep inside, you're absolutely right. It comes from the insecurity that because there are lesser women at workplace, women often feel that if I help the other one, I might be replaced, or I might be easily replaceable, or there are already lesser women at the top, and if I pull in more, my position might be threatened. And I think that's a mindset that we need to change. Having said that, I personally haven't come across too many, because I have come across women who've been very helpful at work to me, but this statistic exists, which means that it is happening at some places. So I often say that as women on top, I think it's also kind of our responsibility that if we are able to get our foot in the door and kind of make space for ourselves, our mindset should be, how do I fill the seats next to me with more women, or how do I make more space for women in this boardroom, or more women to be a part of the table or sit on the table with me. So when you have that mindset and when you don't think that your seat is threatened, I think you come from a different perspective. And if a woman ever helps you, you will only feel like giving it back. You will only feel like wanting to pull another woman, and it just continues. So because I have seen such amazing examples, and I've been a part of beautiful chains where women have literally helped me grow, even personally, professionally, that I kind of feel that I want to pull more women up. And I think it's a beautiful feeling. And when that happens with you, you do want to give it back. So I think everyone at the top, all women at the top, should start that.
Yeah, goodness begets goodness, and the other way around as well. I think that's what you're getting at, and happens at home as well, in our family setups as well. So I want to, Dr. Shambhi, sort of touch upon another subject here, and about participation of women in the workforce. Over the years, statistics tell you that women participation in the workforce has increased. However, that number is largely at the bottom of the pyramid. We haven't seen that percolate to the leadership level. COVID has set that journey back for several women. and they've not been able to make their way back into newsrooms, into workplaces, into other things just yet. What is required there then? How do we balance this statistic out professionally?
You know, it's very interesting. During the process of writing this book, I was interviewing some matchmakers. And because, like you rightly said, the statistics said that the workforce, the women in workforce is kind of dropping. But funnily enough, in the education segment, in education systems, the number is rising. So there are more women who are getting educated. There are more parents who are encouraging kids to go get, you know, masters or go get higher education. But somehow that's not translating to the workforce. And when you look deep inside, you will be surprised at what's happening. So I spoke to one of the matchmakers, and they said that parents are encouraging daughters to study, but most times it's to make sure they're the perfect package to get married. And that was absolutely shocking. This came from, you know, an area of the city that I thought was fairly advanced and progressive. So I was very shocked to hear that. So a lot of education is probably happening for the wrong reasons or for the wrong intent. How do we actually get our women financially independent is where the conversation should be. You know, the kind of pressure we put on the boys of being the breadwinner. We celebrate their milestones, right? When they buy their first car, the first house, and first all of that. Why do we, you know, have different milestones for the girl? Why do we say the marriage, the first baby, the second baby? Why are they her milestones? Why can't we have the similar ones for her? Her first job, her first salary, her first car, her first rented house. So I think that conversation needs to change. Having more women in the workforce is a cumulative effort, because first the families need to kind of have that expectation from the woman of, you know, wanting her to be financially independent, of not making her feel that it's okay, she can, you know, grow up in a father's house and then, you know, have a husband take care of her later. And then if she feels like step out to work, you know, when you give that option, you're actually cutting her wings off. It feels like, oh, we are giving her the freedom to be. But are you know, actually giving her a sense of freedom by... helping them be financially independent is I think a core burning cause that will make more women be in the workforce.
I want to share with you, a friend of mine married her PhD recently. She had a wedding ceremony for her for completing her PhD, and it made all of us, you know, stand up and go, this is very cool, this is very different. But I do want to ask you one more question here. You also say in the book that women are biologically blessed to be leaders. And let's almost end this interview on that note, because I want the women watching in particular to take that message home with them. But I want you to explain to our audiences what you mean when you say that.
So there was this, again, interesting research, you know, where the very important 5 qualities of leadership were being taken out. And when they biologically checked the genders, the women were rated higher on factors of leadership, including accountability, empathy, and, you know, having the sense of what a leader should have, as opposed to men. Even though they rated very well, they lacked a bit on empathy. So I feel our look or our outlook on leadership, where we look at, you know, an aggressive alpha male leader, has to somewhere change, because going forward, even your previous story of hustle culture, I think empathetic leadership is going to take the lead of, you know, leaders who understand, who empathize with their employees, who really kind of take the entire situation, the emotional situation of the employee into the workforce as well. So I was thrilled when I found out that we are biologically more blessed, but this is where I'm like, then where are the women leaders? Why are, you know, they such low in numbers? And when you look at the top of the ladder, I was like, there are few at the top of the ladder, but you realize that there are very few at the bottom of the ladder also, because we need more of them to start the process, more of them to enter, and more of them to not step out midway. You know, most of them really trickle out during their milestones, which is the marriage or the first pregnancy, second pregnancy, and then it's so much about the second innings, or how do I get back on my feet. So I think the support there from a corporate structure is absolutely essential, where the corporate kind of backs them up that, you know, the job will be secured, and kind of then maternity leave, paternity leave all comes into play, and that kind of cushioning will really help women grow forward.
Dr. Shamboli, I don't think a conversation has resonated so much with both of us in the recent past like this one. This is the book to all of our viewers who are watching right now. Go out, purchase your copy. For the men too, please give this a read. All right, we're going to move on. Thank you, Doctor, for joining us here on the show. We're going to take you, our audiences, now to stories from India and across the entire globe. Our first story coming in as we speak from Mumbai. Mumbai police questioning actor Govinda regarding him accidentally shooting himself with his revolver. They're reportedly not convinced with his version of events. Officials of the crime branch met the actor at the hospital on Wednesday. As per reports, they were not convinced of what he had to say to the police.
One of the two California doctors who were amongst the 5 people charged in the overdose death of the Friends star Matthew Perry pleaded guilty on Wednesday to a charge of illegally distributing the drug ketamine. Dr. Mark Chavez entered the plea during the appearance of the US District Court in Los Angeles at sentencing. He could face up to 10 years in prison. Another physician charged in the case, Dr. Placencia, had pleaded not guilty, as had co-defendant Jasween Sangha, who authorized and who authorities said was an illicit supplier of the drug and was known as the ketamine queen as well. The pair are scheduled to go to trial in March.
And as we talk about worker rights, a labour strike taking place by dock workers at the United States East Coast and Gulf Coast ports. It's causing quite a stir. The strike is preventing imports of seafood, other goods including automobiles, Guatemalan bananas, Italian wine, all of these things from being loaded or unloaded, as dozens of ports from Maine to Texas are facing these issues.
All right, there from the streets of US to what's happening here in India. Thinking of going electric? Well, the MG Windsor EV is an interesting option. It's quirky, it's feature-ish and easy on the wallet as well.
But is it worth your money? That's always the question. And we're going to bring you the overdrive verdict on exactly that question. Take a look.
MG Motors has a knack for offering cars that have a first-in segment tag to it, be it the Hector, the Gloucester or the quirky little Comet for that matter of fact. This year is the latest addition to that portfolio and it offers something very different from what we've seen before.
Meet the new MG Windsor EV. Better known as the Wuling Cloud EV in other Southeast Asian markets, MG Motors has bought this new energy vehicle to the Indian markets, and it says that it will disrupt the entire competition at this price point with one very key offering, and that is its battery pack. Now before I tell you more about this battery pack, let's quickly talk about the design, because let's face it, MG does not do ordinary. So just like the Comet, you don't get a very big bonnet up front and you get this LED DRL up here, and the actual headlamp housing is in the lower bumper. Now this area kind of makes me feel like someone from the Citroen design studio had their way with this. But nevertheless, the car looks different from every single angle. Like in profile, it looks like a minivan, and it's got a wheelbase of about 2.7 meters to show for it. Now personally, these 18-inch 5-spoke alloys, while they are designed for aerodynamic efficiency, I think they look super neat and give the car a very posh personality. Now moving over to the rear, you get quite a decent view with this light bar flowing across and Windsor written in bold to remind you that this car is just as royal as the Windsor Castle in England. Yes, that is me doing my best British accent, but let's get on with this video. Now let's talk about this battery pack. Now there's just one 38 kilowatt-hour battery pack on offer, and MG claims it has a range of about 331 kilometers. But there's a catch. Now while you can buy this car for a relatively affordable price of 9.99 lakh rupees ex showroom, you will only be able to rent the battery pack. You will be paying MG Motors 3.5 rupees for every kilometer that you drive, and this is part of MG's new subscription-based model. Now let us know in the comment section what do you think of this, and while I have been stupid enough to sit in this boot and tell you that, let's talk about the boot space as well. Now you get a pretty nice boot space, relatively large. It's about 604 liters, and that includes this under storage as well, because you don't get a spare tire here. Now if that's still not good enough for you, you can still fold down those 60-40 split rear seats for more space. Now let's get on the inside. Now at the time of shooting, MG hasn't revealed the prices of the top end Essence variant, which is what we have here. But even then, this is quite a lavish cabin. You get some soft touch materials, but most of everything used around is plastic, but it is expensive. It feels very expensive. Like even these gold elements around the cabin, it really complements this all black cabin, especially the ones around the speaker grills. Now in terms of storage, you get quite a bit of storage here. There's some here, you even get some cup holders, and my favorite cup holder though is here, which you can use to keep your coffee or water, or in the case of my unhealthy lifestyle, a pack of Pringles. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room, the literal elephant in the room. So everything is buried into this 15.6-inch touchscreen, and you can clearly see that MG has put a lot of effort into it. The Hector's touchscreen, it lagged a little bit, it wasn't the best, but that's not the case here. This new one here in the Windsor is quite slick, it's fast, it responds to every touch, and I personally quite like it. My only complaint would be that it's probably a little confusing to use on the go, but at least the AC control sits separately here.
The Windsor is offered in 4 shades: turquoise green, pearl white, clay beige and starburst black. The features list is also quite stacked, with LED headlamps and tail lamps, flush door handles, a 60-40 rear seat split, wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, cruise control, 6 airbags, TPMS and a whole lot more are all standard. You will have to step up to the higher variants if you prefer the 18-inch alloys, leatherette seats, the 15.6-inch touchscreen, a wireless charger, a 360-degree camera, ambient lighting, the Infinity 9-speaker audio system, the massive glass roof and a 7.4 kilowatt-hour AC charger.
So immediately, the first thing that you notice when you get inside is that there is no push button anywhere. All you have to do is fasten your seat belt, that disengages the electronic handbrake, tap the brake, go into drive and tap the accelerator, and that's how you get going.
Welcome back to the Breakfast Club. Let's talk about something that can be quite annoying. Uninvited guests at home. We already know that's irritating, but you know what's even worse? When those uninvited guests are actually pimples and acne showing up on your face, especially when they're forehead surprises.
I think I have one over here right now, which I've nicely hid away with some makeup. But you know what I'm saying, right? When you always have this urge to sort of pop them and they always appear at the worst time. Today on the Vibe Factor, we're getting to the bottom of this skin saboteur. Let's dive in.
Who likes uninvited guests? I don't. Do you? No one, right? And the most irritating, unwanted, uninvited, unwelcome guest happens to be the biggest villain of our skin, pimples. How do they always know to show up when we are getting excited for certain special occasions? That too on the forehead. Forehead pimples can be the ultimate confidence killer. But have you ever wondered why we get pimples, especially on the forehead? In simple words, pimples happen when pores in your skin get blocked and inflamed. Moving on to the forehead, a part of the larger T-zone of the face, including the nose and chin, is prone to breakouts for so many reasons. There is a general belief system in ancient Chinese medicine, the forehead is linked to our digestive system. So, if you get pimples too often, that means you are indulging in too much sugar, processed foods, or not drinking enough water. Then, how do these pores in your skin get blocked and inflamed? Let's understand from an expert.
Acne anywhere in the body is primarily occurring due to three common factors. The first factor being the unhealthy production of oil in your skin, which is medically known as sebum. The second most important factor is the accumulation of dead skin cells. And thirdly is the overgrowth of the bacteria that causes acne. Now, even though these factors are related for occurrence of acne anywhere in the body, in the forehead it becomes even more so important because your forehead is a part of your T-zone, where the activity of this sebaceous gland, which is responsible for producing this oil or sebum, is more in distribution as well as in concentration.
We know that forehead pimples can be frustrating, but understanding their causes and implementing effective skincare practices can significantly reduce their occurrence. We mean by addressing factors like oil production, hormonal imbalance, and lifestyle choices, you can improve your skin's appearance and maintain a clearer complexion. To understand it better, let's ask our expert.
So what becomes essential to prevent this forehead acne is to follow a proper cleansing regime, using a pH balanced cleanser to ensure that the skin pH is maintained and your skin is thoroughly cleansed. Secondly, it is important to stay away or shy away from the overusage of chemicals on your hair. Using very strong shampoos can disrupt the pH of your scalp. Your scalp skin is as important as your skin. So it's very necessary that you use very mild shampoos which can help prevent irritation of your scalp and also at the same time cleanse your scalp. Make sure that you stay away from products which are laden with sulfates, parabens or fragrances. Using and choosing to have hairstyles which are more summer friendly is always helpful in tropical countries because we have a very humid weather. Any hairstyle or occlusive usage of headbands in this weather can lead to the overdevelopment of acne. So use as minimum as possible as hair accessories because that could lead to friction in the forehead area. Lastly, if your forehead acne is resistant, do consult a dermatologist because sometimes it is necessary that you might need oral antibiotics or topical skincare to get rid of these problems. I hope these tips are useful. Always remember to stay hydrated and eat a well-balanced diet to have healthy skin.
So, now that you know why we get forehead pimples and how can we avoid them, share away.
Okay, and with that, we are going to be drawing our show to a close. It's Friday, as Sonal, as you like to say. But we'll just let our audiences know one more thing. At the bottom of the screen right now, we're playing out for you where you can send us in your feedback. Send it in any episode this week. We want to know what you thought, what you'd like to see done on the show. Let us know.
On that note, have a good weekend, stay positive, and women, lots to read up and lots to think about in these times. Catch you on Monday. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
At L'Oréal.
morning and a warm welcome. You're watching CNN News 18 with me, Griha Atul. We begin with some breaking news at the top of 9 a.m. Let's take a look. We are learning of an Israeli strike on Hezbollah in Lebanon's Beirut. This is to target Hassan Nasrallah's presumed successor, Hashim Saifuddin. Reports are suggesting that the funeral of the Hezbollah leader, Hassan Nasrallah, was to be held today, and Iran's foreign minister, Arghashi, is expected in Beirut as well for meetings today. And in the midst of those reports, there is this strike by Israel, and this was possibly to take out Hassan Nasrallah's presumed successor, Hashim Saifuddin. And this is going to be a huge blow if at all the Israeli targets hit what they were expected to hit. Presumably, we do not really know for sure what really was the intended target, but we do know how Israel has vowed to, in fact, wipe out Hezbollah from Lebanon, and hence these increased amount of striking that southern Lebanon, especially Beirut, really is seeing. And this time around, we were learning that how today there was a funeral of Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah that was supposed to be held, and for that very funeral and also some other meetings, Iran's foreign minister was also expected in Beirut today. Now, in the middle of all of that information, we are also learning of this Israeli strike. My colleague Siddhant has more details. Yes, Siddhant.
Well, that's right. It's again a major hit by Israel, but we are still awaiting official confirmation. But as per the reports, in fact, some of the leading publications in Middle East have come up with this story that Israeli strike on Hezbollah in Lebanon's Beirut targets Hassan Nasrallah's presumed successor, Hashim Saifuddin. And in fact, Israeli media has also been reporting about it. We are still awaiting official response from IDF or Hezbollah. And also, reports suggest funeral of Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah will be held today. Ali Khamenei will lead a special Friday prayers in commemoration of Hezbollah chief Nasrallah at the Imam Khamenei Mosque in Tehran. So amidst all this, the Israeli media is reporting that a target has been hit in Beirut, and in that operation, the presumed successor of Hassan Nasrallah, Hashim Saifuddin, has been eliminated by Israeli forces. Now, we are still awaiting official response from the either side. But right now, this is what some of the leading publications in Middle East, including some leading newspapers in Israel, are reporting.
So we do not yet know whether Saifuddin is alive or he in fact has been the target of these strikes by Israel. Siddhant, how soon can we expect a reaction from Hezbollah? Because at the time that the Hezbollah commander Nasrallah was eliminated by Israel airstrikes, there was an immediate release by Hezbollah. They had in fact seconded this entire thing that he in fact is no more. If at all this were to be true, that his intended successor has also been eliminated by Israeli airstrikes, how soon can we expect a response from Hezbollah?
Well, first we could expect IDF to come up with the official statement, because IDF does its own assessment after every strike or operation they do. So we could expect IDF first to come up with a statement confirming or denying the elimination of Hashim Saifuddin. And once IDF will make it public, then we could expect some sort of a response from Lebanese authorities or Hezbollah. And in fact, at the time of Hassan Nasrallah's elimination also, it was IDF which confirmed it first, and I still remember very much that the Iranian side were denying it. But then later, Hezbollah had no other option but to accept that Hassan Nasrallah is no more. And later in the evening, Hezbollah came up with a release confirming the death of Hassan Nasrallah. So could be the same format would be followed this time around again, because IDF has an assessment, and IDF also tries to keep things transparent as far as their operation is concerned. So they have their teams which do the assessment of the damage and destruction caused by the strike, and the top commanders and the terrorists being killed in that strike. Back to you.
Right. Thank you so much for that, Siddhant. We'd request you to stay on with us. Now, if at all this were in fact true that Hassan Nasrallah's intended successor, Hashim Saifuddin, also has been killed by Israel, then we only wonder what is the kind of escalation that we are looking at towards Israel from the Iranian side, because we'd seen how Iran had in fact sent out ballistic missiles to Israel after the killing of Hassan Nasrallah. They in fact had spoken about how the strikes are only going to escalate if Israel doesn't really stop the pounding of Lebanon, or for that matter Gaza. Now, as the conflict rages on between Israel and Iran, new developments are now emerging. Sources are indicating that the Cabinet Committee on Security has discussed the escalating situation, particularly Israel's potential strike near the Russian airbase, to send out a message to Moscow as well. Russia has now condemned Israeli actions at the UN and ordered its citizens to leave Israel following the airstrikes near its base in Syria. Hezbollah is set to hold a ceremony for its chief, led by Iran's supreme leader, who will also preside over the Friday prayers in Tehran. We were just talking about how the Iranian foreign minister is in Israel for the same and for some other meetings. And it is in Lebanon, I beg your pardon. In fact, if you're talking about Lebanon, Israel's military is warning that over 20 towns should be evacuated, while the Lebanese army is reporting a soldier who has been killed in an Israeli strike. Meanwhile, Emirates Airlines has suspended flights to Iraq, Iran and Jordan due to the regional unrest, as the Lebanese health minister has reported nearly 2,000 casualties from Israeli attacks.
We're in discussion with that. I think that would be a little, anyway.
It seems Israel military thought that after having those explosions, bleepers and wireless without radio, communication devices twice, and so many killed. They thought that they had destroyed the command and control system of Hezbollah. They also convinced themselves they had destroyed a lot of weapons. Now, apparently that is not the case. Hezbollah is still a power to reckon with.
Let me take this across to my colleague Siddhant, who continues to be with us. Siddhant, there's too much of an escalation now that we're looking at. There are strikes and counter strikes. There was so much that was said by the Israeli authorities, post which there was a statement that was put out by Iran as well. Iran is steadfast in having people to believe that what they are doing is either targeting the military bases of Israel or Mossad particularly. What are you learning about the casualty figures in Israel when it's compared to Lebanon, for that matter, where the strikes by Israel currently are happening?
Well, look, Iran has its own claim when it comes to the barrage of ballistic missiles which Iran had sent to Israel the other day. They have their own assessment of the damage, and in fact their leading publications have come up with several sites where these Fateh 1, Fateh 2 missiles had done a damage. And in fact, Iranian publications also have to say that one of the air bases where F-15s were stationed have also got damaged. But Israeli side has to say that there has only been a very minimum damage as far as the Iranian strike is concerned, and none of the key installations have been affected. So that is what Israeli side have been saying. But very interesting development took place yesterday, and perhaps I would like to talk about that.
Yes.
Israel conducted airstrike near Russian air base in Syria, and the weapon depot was destroyed. Now, perhaps it cannot be seen, this incident cannot be taken casually, because usually in Middle East, Israel and Russia avoid coming face to face, or perhaps coming closer to each other on the battleground. But if this strike has taken place near Russian airbase, perhaps it is also being seen as Israel sending strong message to Russia, because from day one, if you remember, Russian position has always been in favor of Iran. In fact, Russian Prime Minister was in Iran one day ahead of Iran attacking Israel.
Yes.
Russia has also announced help and assistance to Lebanon. Russia has been critical of Israel in the Security Council. So, you know, many have to say that this could be a message which Israel wanted to send out to Russians, and perhaps that's the reason that they selected this weapon depot which belongs to Iranian proxies in Syria, and that depot was targeted. But it's not a good sign if we talk about Israel and Russia coming so close in the battleground. Either of the side have not confirmed that, but going by what reports are telling us.
Absolutely, because it was a US backing particularly that Israel is going to have, so to speak, and over that we are talking about the other two superpowers, that of Russia and China, who could possibly also venture into this entire escalating conflict, and Russia as it is will be on the Iranian side amidst this particular attack. And this attack at the airbase, which is close to Russia's Syrian border, is only going to make matters worse when it is about the escalation of this conflict. Siddhant, thank you so much for joining us. We are getting more reactions on this particular story that we continue to track. Let's take a look.
Looking into the wider conflict between Israel and Iran, I have a feeling that Iran has responded. Iran was in a dilemma actually. If they responded, they were open to attacks, and if they don't respond, their credibility gets eroded. So it was a toss-up. What would they do? And they chose to attack. Now they are open to attack. Israel will attack. There is no doubts about it. The timings is up to them. The target is up to them. But Iran is not that well defended as Israel.
जो 1600 पॉइंट का गिरावट बता रहे हैं, इसमें सबसे मुख्य कारण है कि ईरान ने कल 200 मिसाइल और ड्रोन अटैक से इजराइल के ऊपर हमला किया, और वो अभी ये आशंका है कि इजराइल भी इसका बदला लेगा, कुछ भयानक आक्रमण करेगा। तो वैश्विक स्तर पे पूरी सब जगह अनिश्चितता का माहौल हुआ है। खास करके आप देख रहे हैं कि भारतीय स्टॉक मार्केट गिरे हैं, और इसमें भी हमारा मानना है कि कुछ स्टॉक्स हैं जो इजरायली कनेक्शन जिसका है और ऑयल बेस्ड स्टॉक्स हैं, उसमें कुछ ज़्यादा गिरावट आने वाले दिनों में कुछ ज़्यादा गिरावट देखने को मिल सकती है।
Now, after Iran launched dozens of missiles towards Israel, Israel has vowed to respond to this attack, sparking worries among its allies that the conflict in the Middle East could escalate further. Speaking exclusively to CNN News 18's Zaka Jacob, Israeli ambassador to India, Reuven Azar, has said that response will be decisive. Let's take a look.
This is a difficult time for you as a country. It should be a happy time, the beginning of the Jewish New Year. The whole world is looking at Israel's next move, especially in light of what happened on Tuesday. First of all, your reaction to the barrage of rocket attacks, almost 200 of them that we saw on Tuesday night.
Oh, this, Zaka, indeed was completely unprecedented, and it's a flagrant violation of international law. Now, thanks to the excellent missile defense system that Israel has, one of the best in the world probably, we have managed to thwart this attack. And not only thanks to that, but also thanks to our coordination and cooperation, first of all with the United States, our main ally and supporter, and also with countries in the region that are also worried from what Iran is doing and are trying to defend their skies. Now, imagine a situation in which we wouldn't retaliate on this. What that would mean, not only for Israel, but also for all the countries in the region and for the international community, because when a rogue state like Iran is conducting itself in such a way, it means that this enters as a tactic that might be legitimized and might be used in the future by other countries. So we don't only have a right to defend ourselves, we have a duty to defend ourselves if we want this kind of attacks not to repeat again, and we have to be capable of going all the way. Now, of course, we would be very happy if more diplomatic pressure and more military pressure would be put on Iran by international players. But once we are attacked, we have the duty to defend our citizens, I remind you, Zaka, that we wanted to keep this confined to the Gaza Strip. We were attacked atrociously on the 7th of October, almost a year ago.
Yeah.
And those who have decided to escalate the situations were the proxies of Iran. So you got Hezbollah that started firing at Israel at the 8th of October. You had the Houthis, and we tried to get it into a diplomatic solution in the north. So the fact that they are doubling down again and again, each time that we are protecting ourselves, that means that Iran is interested in escalation.
And we are now getting some breaking news on the broadcast. The Union Cabinet has approved the inclusion of 5 languages as they would now be getting the classical language status, and that includes the inclusion of Marathi, Bengali, Assamese, Pali, Prakrit, and these 5 languages now, as has been announced by Union Minister Ashwini Vaishnav, will be getting that classical language status. This is a decision that's also been hailed by the Prime Minister, as he has gone on to call this entire decision historic.
5 भाषाओं को जो क्लासिक का दर्जा दिया गया है, कितना इम्पोर्टेंट है, खास करके बंगाल के लिए, क्योंकि आज से नवरात्रि शुरू है, दुर्गा पूजा का एक तरह से संपर्क।
देखिए, दुर्गा पूजा का अवसर निश्चित रूप से बंगाल वासियों के लिए बहुत महत्वपूर्ण अवसर है, और मैं ये मानता हूँ कि शारदीय नवरात्र के प्रथम दिन आज माँ सरस्वती के स्वरूप बांग्ला को, भाषा को, शास्त्रीय भाषा का दर्जा देकर के माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी ने निश्चित रूप से बंगाल वासियों को, मराठी बोलने वाले मराठी भाषियों को, असम जिसमें लंबे समय से इसको लेकर के मांग की, आंदोलन भी हुए, ऐसे असमिया भाषा बोलने वाले लोगों को और पाली और प्राकृत भाषा बोलने वाले लोगों को एक बड़ा तोहफा आज शारदीय नवरात्र देवी के इस दिन में ये तोहफे के रूप में दिया है। भारत में ये परंपरा जो पिछले 2004 के साल में पहली बार प्रारंभ हुई थी, जब तमिल भाषा को दर्जा प्रदान किया गया था, और उसके बाद में संस्कृत को, कन्नड़ को, तेलुगु को, मलयालम को और उड़िया भाषा को, इन 6 भाषाओं को पहले इस तरह का दर्जा 2014 तक दिया गया था। कोई भी भाषा जो पिछले 1500-2000 सालों से निरंतर बोली जा रही हो, आज भी उस बोली बोलने वाले लोग हों, उसमें निरंतरता के साथ में साहित्य का सृजन हुआ हो और इसके प्रमाण उपलब्ध हो, तब इस तरह का दर्जा दिया जा सकता है। राज्य सरकारें अनुशंसा करती है, उस पर लिंग्विस्टिक कमेटी, एक्सपर्ट कमेटी विचार करके और वो संस्कृति मंत्रालय को भेजती है। आज ये दर्जा मिला और मैं ये मानता हूँ कि ये बंगाल के लोगों के लिए, महाराष्ट्र के लोगों के लिए, असम के लोगों के लिए आज निश्चित रूप से एक बहुत बड़ा गर्व करने जैसा दिन है।
आज एक हिस्टोरिकल डे है जब बांग्ला सहित और टोटल 5 भाषाओं को क्लासिकल लैंग्वेज की दर्जा केंद्रीय सरकार की कैबिनेट की तरफ से कैबिनेट मीटिंग में दिया गया है। मैं इसलिए माननीय प्रधानमंत्री आदरणीय नरेंद्र मोदी जी का बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद करता हूं, साधुवाद करता हूं। और बंगाल को लेके स्पेशली मैं बोलना चाहूंगा, आदरणीय प्रधानमंत्री जी का बांग्ला भाषा, बंगाली कल्चर को लेके आदरणीय प्रधानमंत्री जी की तरफ से जो उच्च चिंतन है वो इससे दर्शाता है। और पश्चिम बंगाल की हर एक बंगाली की तरफ से, हर एक बंगाली की तरफ से मैं आदरणीय प्रधानमंत्री जी को और उनकी पूरी कैबिनेट को बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद देता हूं। और जो रिच कल्चर बंगाल की लिटरेचर में है, बंगाल की साहित्य में है, बंगाली भाषा में है, जो कविगुरु रविन्द्रनाथ ठाकुर से लेकर आज तक जो कंटिन्यूअसली ये चल रहा है बांग्ला भाषा, बांग्ला साहित्य को लेकर, तो इसके लिए बांग्ला जो दर्जा बांग्ला को मिलना चाहिए था, आज वो दर्जा नरेंद्र मोदी ने बांग्ला को दिया है। इसलिए मेरे तरफ से बंगाल की बीजेपी के चीफ की तरफ से और केंद्रीय मंत्रिसभा में बंगाल की नुमाइंदगी मैं करता हूं, माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी को बहुत 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 धन्यवाद।
And my colleague Payal Mehta is with us on the broadcast. Payal, you were just speaking to, in fact, the Union Minister after this historic decision of including these 5 languages as the classical or the Shastriya languages has been taken by the Union Cabinet. But specifically, if we take a look at West Bengal, how politicking is already started. It was much said how the TMC chief Mamata Banerjee was the one who was instrumental in getting Bengali added to the list. And this is a government's initiative to preserve the rich heritage of all these 5 languages within the country. But do you see this entire politicking go further with the kind of responses that are, let's say, coming in from Shukanta Majumdar? Now there is going to be a counter by the TMC as well.
Well, we have seen what has really panned out ever since that decision was really announced, with Mamata Banerjee in fact taking credit. And she has been called out by the likes of BJP's co-in-charge for Bengal, Mr. Amit Malviya, essentially putting out a timeline of the entire matter and how it was really pursued. So, when sometimes a few years ago, like Mr. Shekhawat was saying, when the Prime Minister was approached, by the unit of the Marathis who've been pursuing this matter for a very long time, the Prime Minister in fact then said that, let's ask, it won't be possible to do it for just one individual state, let's ask other states as well. Assam has been pursuing this battle for a very, very long time as well. And after which, of course, the request was made to Bengal, but Bengal was not very proactive. It was in fact on the initiative of the central government led by Prime Minister Modi that they actually decided to come and given their approval as well. And the approval came in as late as January 2024 as well. So that's what the central government is saying, that instead of being grateful to Prime Minister Narendra Modi for having done this for the people of Bengal, it seems Mamata Banerjee is running a credit war. So that's what the argument really has been. And the argument will get more and more because, you understand that there is a bitter war of words on multiple issues as far as the BJP and the TMC are concerned in the state of Bengal, with their arch rivals.
Right. And Payal, also make our viewers understand the significance of this. The fact that all of these 5 languages now make it to the classical language category. What does it mean for India?
Well, classical languages make you first there is a way in which you document a language to be a classical language. They have to fulfill certain criteria. They have to be having a manuscript, etc., for a certain period of time, more than 1600 years and etc. When a language is classified as a classical language, their promotion takes place on multiple levels. Education can be happening in those languages in various courses as well, and promotion takes place at the center as well as the state level as well. So it's actually promotion of the languages at every level is what makes these languages very significant. We already had about 5 to 6 languages, including Tamil, Telugu, Malayalam, Odia in the past, and now you of course have the addition of these languages. People in Assam and Maharashtra in particular very, very happy and very, very overjoyed, because remember Maharashtra, from the early 2000s, we have the Marathis who've been following up for this. They wanted the language to be classified, to be given the classical language, recognition is what we've been hearing. The documentation is there for everybody to really see.
Right. Thank you so much for that, Payal. And with that, we are shifting our focus and talking about the West Bengal aspect of this entire thing that we were just discussing. This is the Union Cabinet approving that conferring of status of classical language to all these 5 languages, and that includes Bengali. And after which, the West Bengal Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee expressed her delight over Bengali being conferred the status of classical language. And TMC has now given credit to Mamata Banerjee. In fact, TMC MP Mehrotra has said that the Cabinet approves conferring classical language status to Bengali, and this is all thanks to Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee and her efforts. My colleague Kamalika is with me for more details. Kamalika, we just heard a counter to this entire argument by Shukanta Majumdar, who has claimed that this is all the Prime Minister who in fact has approved the classical language status, and we should be thankful to the Prime Minister, as opposed to the kind of narrative that is coming in from the state of West Bengal. How do you see this being politically playing out now?
Well, it's absolutely a credit word that is being there, obviously. Just after this declaration, Mamata Banerjee came up with a tweet where she said that this is a fruit of the struggle of the people of Bengal and the struggle of obviously the demand of the Trinamool Congress. And she has said that though the other languages got the classical language status, but it was Bengal which did not get, and Bengal was neglected. Now that they have got, after so much of letters that was written from the Bengal, they feel happy. This is a fact that their number of letters were written to the central government to consider Bengal as classical language. not only by the TMC government but also Adhir Chaudhary and the other parties also. So obviously it's a big day of joy for Bengal, no doubt. But definitely there is a credit war also. Now definitely the final decision has been taken by central government, and that is why obviously the BJP is projecting that Mamata Banerjee